Here's another spooky story, and this one takes us to a funeral home. The story starts off with a family of 4. There's a mom, a dad, and their 2 sons, and this family owns a funeral home. Now, at times, the sons during the week will come in and they'll assist the parents at this funeral home. There's a younger boy who's about 15 or 16 years old, and then this youngest son. Now, on this particular evening, the 2 parents and the youngest son have an outing to go to. This leaves the oldest son at the funeral parlor for the night while he waits for his parents to get back. Now, before the parents leave for the evening, the dad gets a call from a woman whose husband is set to be buried at the funeral home, I think the day after. So the dad is talking to the woman on the phone, and this woman is begging him to postpone the funeral. And the dad's like, I definitely cannot do that. You know, we have a schedule. We have other people who are wishing to be interred, and it's likely not gonna happen, not to say we won't try. Now, the reason the woman gives for wanting the dad to postpone the funeral in the first place is because her husband, who had passed away, was a war veteran. This war veteran thought it was super important to be buried with their medals, and the wife couldn't find them. She really wanted him to have them, and part of her husband's last will and testament was to be buried with these medals, and she wanted to honor his last request by finding the medals and making sure that he had them when he was interred. Now, again, she could not find these medals for the life of her. She had been searching for a couple of days at this point. So the dad, although understanding, does tell the lady that the likelihood of them being able to postpone the funeral is very unlikely. Now, it's also time for them to get ready to go, and time's running out for them to leave. So he rushes the lady off the phone, says that if she finds the medals in between tonight and the funeral the next day, then she can definitely bring them in. He hangs up the phone, grabs the keys, and he tells his oldest son, who's going to be there by himself tonight, to make sure he locks up for the night because the funeral parlor is closed at this point. They're not going to be receiving any visitors, and he just wants to make sure his son is safe and the place is secured. Now, despite this being a family business, the oldest son hates being left at the funeral parlor by himself, but obviously he can manage because he's older. Now, he does his rounds and he locks the doors, and he's sitting on the couch watching TV when all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. So the son turns the volume down on the TV because he wants to make sure he heard what he heard. And again, there was another knock. So the son is a little bit freaked out at this point, but he goes and he opens the door, and there's a man standing there. Now, this man is holding a brown paper bag, and he tells the son that he needs to see Reginald Hannon. Now, Reginald Hannon is the name of the deceased guy who is due to be buried tomorrow. The guy states that he's a friend of Reginald Hannon, and he found his medals at his house, presumably under safekeeping, so later on he could have them. So upon hearing this, the boy surveys the man and is like, okay. Now, as he's escorting him down to see the body to make sure that the man doesn't mess with anything, he starts to get really creeped out by the man's vibes. And because he's feeling insecure at this point, he makes the man sign the guest book. So once the man signs the guest book, the boy leads him into the church where the funeral is going to be held and the body station. And he decides that he's going to give the man a little bit of space and stand back out in the parlor where the guest book is. Now, the boy stands out there for about 10 minutes and he's like, what is going on? Where is this man at? So he goes back inside of the church and he notices that nobody's there. And so he starts searching the pews and he can't find anything, but he did find the brown paper bag laying on a pew. He picks it up, the bag's empty, and of course at this point he's really creeped out. So he's still trying to find this man that he led in to see this body, and this man is not there. So he's still looking around the church, he's searching under the pews, and all of a sudden he gets the inclination to walk up to the casket. Now he's thinking that the man might be hiding somewhere around it. So he looks around the casket, he lifts up the skirt, there's nobody there. And this is when he gets the bright idea to look in the casket himself. Now this is when he gets the shock of his life, because the man who was laying in the casket does have his medals on. The problem is, the man who bought the medals in is the man laying in the casket. Now the boy is freaked the hell out. He hijacks it out of that church and he knocks over the visitor book. Now because he can't leave it like that, he goes back over to pick it up, and that's when he gets the second shock of the evening, because as he's putting the guest book back on the podium, he sees the name that's been written down. And the name in the guest book reads Reginald Hannon, the man who's due to be buried the next day.
各位是否也经历过是亲人于愿未了，或是发生灵异事件的经验呢？欢迎在评论区留言分享你的故事，我们下个影片再见。